Do you think that society's undertone of hatred towards women plays into the pro-life rhetoric? As in, it's easier to latch onto the concept of a little baby than to the plight of women? I actually do. I think that the two go hand in hand. And I originally recorded a TikTok about this, but I deleted it because I realized I needed more introspection. And here are my thoughts so far. When it comes to the plight of women, you'll often find that a great deal of Christian men in general don't know very much about pregnancy. You can ask 100 Christian men questions about female anatomy, and you'll often find that they just don't know what the organs are. You might ask them what the effects of pregnancy are on the body, or like how long a recovery time is, or even something as minute as how long does labor take. And you might get a wide variety of answers because a great deal of men aren't really taught about pregnancy in a realistic manner. You'll often find in Christian circles that pregnancy is mystified. Think about how churches describe pregnancy. They describe it as a gift from God, a miracle. You're creating life. They are presenting pregnancy in an abstract manner rather than a realistic manner. The problem with this is that the mystification of pregnancy discourages men and women alike from actually learning more about what pregnancy entails, usually until they actually get pregnant themselves. It makes them uncomfortable to learn about the negative aspects of reproduction because faith culture treats caution as doubt. Ultimately, this is an extension of the evangelical mindset towards women. Women are often either idealized as being the ultimate fulfiller of needs and desires, the continuation of the human species, or the embodiment of beauty, or they're infantilized as being delicate or unserious or superficial. You can see the issue, though, in that men aren't being taught to view women as equals. Evangelical and purity culture essentially pushes for them to be viewed as an extension of men. In the former, they serve as the full complement to the needs of a man's desires. In the latter, they are an extension of a man's domain and purview. This is happening in conjunction with young men being taught to become more emotionally isolated due to factors in culture such as homophobia, the sexual repression of purity culture, and this toxic belief that men must validate their own existence. Men typically lose emotional connections they had in childhood with the onset of puberty, and emotional connections with other people is often sexualized for men, while for women, it isn't always. For example, when I was 14, the purity culture that was being taught in my youth group was teaching me these false ideas that hugging, kissing, and nudity are all sexual, when they really aren't. This incentivizes codependency, in that young men attempt to have all of their emotional needs met by one single sexual partner, as opposed to having a strong community of friends to rely upon. This is unsustainable, and one person can't meet your full emotional needs, and men tend to feel very mistreated and hurt when codependency inevitably fails them. They can, however, see that women are still maintaining emotional connections within their social circles, and this creates envy as they are unaware of the full reality of what women experience. This emotional deprivation, combined with ignorance of women as equals, creates envy within men, and often eventually misogyny. Because to a male's perspective, women receive everything that they themselves want: connection, validation, recognition. This is exacerbated by accomplishments. There's often a fight or flight response to what women achieve. Some men respond to this by attempting to improve themselves in order to compete with women, and other men respond to this by attempting to undermine or repress the capability of women. You can also see this in how men perceive women in social settings, with one example being how men develop envy over women who have exclusive social groups for women. A woman who finds fulfillment on their own often draws an emotional reaction from men, typically derision or belittlement depending on how they are perceived. A woman who is perceived as being attractive, who has her needs being met despite being childless or single, is considered selfish, while a woman who is perceived as being unattractive, who is single and childless and fulfilled, is considered bitter. I do firmly believe that this lack of emotional intelligence, either due to the failures or the features of Christian teaching, has made it easier for men and Christians to relate to the theoretical abstract idea of a person as opposed to empathizing with the real-life stories of women who have faced complications from pregnancy. Emotional intelligence isn't effectively being taught in the church, and the narrative being taught to young men in the church about women often essentially ends at childbirth. As a young man, you're taught the steps to win a woman over and get them to bear children for you, but the story largely ends after that. Think about the sermons that you are taught about women. There are sermons maybe about maintaining a marriage, maybe about raising children. Have you ever heard a sermon about postpartum depression or a mastectomy? American evangelical culture, and by extension purity culture, does not treat men to view women as equals. I don't know if Christian theology is actually capable of treating women as equals, because I personally believe that there are several flaws within its theology. However, the ultimate results of purity culture and evangelical culture are essentially misogyny.